CTR2.
Yeah, exactly. So am I. All right, now we have to get to our special guest.
Yes.
We have a special guest, and he's going to be raiding soon. So we're going to just jump. We're going to jump to the scouting report now.
Sorry, that was...
I just need to warn him that we're coming to him.
That little squeal, that was Solar. That wasn't me. just so you know. Solar, calm down, please.
Right.
Don't get so excited.
Right.
Is this real life?
Is this real life? Yes. So we have a very special guest with us to talk about warlocks, and that special guest is Coltrane. Who is it?
It's Blatty, baby.
Yeah. Woo! All right. Let's just add him to the call right now, and we'll see what's going on. That's right. Hello.
Can we talk? Oh, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So
Hey,
how are you?
We're doing great. And it's so great to have you on. I cannot tell you how excited we are to have you on today to just chat about everything. So,
I'm excited as well.
Good.
In French.
In French. Yes. Now I will play down, just so you know, we're going to do like a segment style thing where I'll play a little sounder and then I'll have a little intro for you. And then we'll get going into a bunch of different questions. Probably, we'll start probably with heroic progression and then move into Affliction Warlock. And
Sure.
Okay, good. So let's do this. You other boys ready?
Yes.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right, here we go.
The Scouting Report.
Whoa.
All right, it's time to get an in-depth look at a particular class and spec from a very knowledgeable source. This week, he is from the #1 ranked guild in the world, Method, and he was playing mage for his main, but this tier he's been playing a warlock. Here to talk about Affliction Warlocks is Blatty. Hello, sir.
Hello.
We give you the applause and everything.
Big applause.
That's
Yep.
right. That's right. So how are you doing?
Well, I'm great. I'm about to raid in an hour as well.
Well, I'm glad that we grabbed you before you had to go raid. By the way, speaking of raiding, congratulations on being world first for defeating Raden. Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a great achievement.
And you
that's
guys
really nice for us because, yeah.
You guys have been close to world first for a little while, and now you actually got the world first. I mean, world first. Do you see that there's because Paragon, they were 10-man, right? And then so there's basically two races. Is that the way that you see it?
Yeah, basically, I think it was pretty much cleared out this year in the top guilds interviews, like Paragon and Method interviews, that the races are very different. So, yeah, the whole 10-man versus 25-man war first has been discussed again and again.
Right.
And we can now safely say that, war first 25-man is different than war first 10-man. So,
yeah, I think that's pretty true. Guys, do you have questions about progression rating?
You actually just answered it. I was going to ask Blatty what he thought on the whole 10-25 man debacle, but it looks like we covered that pretty quickly, so that's good.
Right.
I was going to ask you, you mentioned you were raiding in an hour. I mean, do you kind of feel that kind of release of the pressure now that Raden is down? Is he a lot more laid back now?
Well, actually, the release of the pressure happened right after Lei Shan. It's well known that it's considered as the real last boss of Throne of Thunder, so Raden was pretty much vacation already.
Really?
Right.
Oh, so did you feel like the tier was over then? So you didn't, so sure you got world first Raden, but did you also feel like after Lei Shen was over, then the game was pretty much done with in that tier, at least? Did you feel confident that Raden would be easier?
Well, we knew Raden was going to be easy. It was just a matter of gear. We had the strat in a few pools, I think, or within weeks at least. And I mean, everyone pretty much was very much relieved after Lei Shen, and Raiden just felt like, well, let's wait for more gear. And don't think there was much pressure involved, as the boss is really easy. The mechanics are pretty easy. There's like basically nothing you can fail on. And was just a huge gear check and
cool.
Awesome.
Bonus.
What was your favorite encounter in for heroic mode rating this tier?
Well, definitely Lei Shen. That was like one of the best tuned, and like everything from Lei Shen is like super nice. Like when I went versus Lei Shen on PTR, I knew it was like 10-man normal mode on PTR, and I already knew that this encounter was gonna be tremendous in 25-man heroic mode. So yeah, I really wasn't disappointed in Lei Shen.
Cool.
Did you feel like it was a more fluid fight than Heroic Ragnaros in terms of difficulty? They were probably, would you say, equal? But did you feel like Lei Shen was crafted better?
Well, those encounters are pretty different because I think there's a huge fail check on Lei Shen that there wasn't really on Ragnaros. Like, Ragnaros was pretty straightforward until the last phase. There was some kind of execution required, like group execution, but the last phase was pretty much the big fail check for me. And on Lei Shen, it's like those transition phases are pretty huge, and any fail can actually wipe the raid. So yeah, I think overall the boss is really nice. In terms of skills required, it's really huge, and then the group execution is like really nice as well. Like,
cool.
I don't know how to explain it.
Well, like you, like nobody
personal
can...
responsibility, you mean?
Well, everything is like super hard. Like the healing is really hard. The DPS check in phase 1 is pretty big, and then there's the last phase is pretty insane as well. Very well tuned last phase. Like the first 2 phases, apart from the huge fail check, are pretty straightforward. But the last phase is pretty tricky. I mean, the heal required is really, really big. And in our case, it even required our how you call them? Shadow Priest. Well, actually, we don't have Shadow Priest, but healer, DPS healer classes. How do you call them in English already? I lost
the hybrid classes.
Yeah, hybrid classes had to heal a lot in the last phase.
Really?
Or we would never have made it. Yeah.
Wow.
I think it was like really huge. Like you can't just play this boss like it is just a normal boss. You have to use everything to the max. You have to play your character perfectly, every ability, stuns, heals, whatnot. Everyone has to play their best in the last phase. It's really nice.
Gotcha. Well, I know that since you're rating here pretty soon, let's move into Affliction Warlock if we can. Now, why did you decide to switch from Mage as your main to a Warlock?
Well, what happened was that there was never really a point for bringing 3 mages in method raids.
Sure.
Even in last year or whatnot, like mages don't bring to the table besides their huge DPS, yeah?
Right.
So Warlocks actually bring a lot in a raid in terms of multi-dotting and whatnot that mages cannot really bring. We also were down 1 Warlock, which brought us down to 1 single Warlock for progress, and that wasn't like unacceptable. So yeah, I decided to step in, and instead of having 3 mages, 1 Warlock, basically we had 2 mages and 2 Warlocks, which was pretty much way more balanced than 3 mages and 1 Warlock.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, that makes sense. Now let's talk a little bit about Affliction. What is kind of the play style of Affliction versus other Warlock specs?
Well, Affliction is a pretty strange spec because at first, coming from a mage, I was like, okay, where are my nukes? There's no nukes.
Right.
So basically, Affliction is like, put dots on your target, and then whenever you can buff those dots by putting them again, like recasting them at the right time when you have procs and whatnot, the stronger your dots are on the target, the more DPS you will do, because that's all you need to do is put strong dots on your target and then just cast a filler spell. So, yeah, that was pretty big for me coming from a mage. It was like, there's no nuke, nothing. There's like barely one cooldown to use, and then there's just big dots and place your filler spell in between, or actually buff those dots when you need to with shards. So yeah, there's also the shard management, but
right.
Yeah,
right.
That's one of the only tricky things.
Sure. Well, let's talk about spells first, and kind of what you're using on a regular basis, and how you like your dots, and then how do you buff those. So let's get kind of into the detail here.
What kind of buffs are we talking about? Single target, for example,
well,
opener?
Just as far as like your normal spells that you are using all the time. We can go into openers if you like. But what?
Okay, well,
I'll let you kind of guide us, because I haven't played a warlock since Wrath, so I know these other two guys have.
There's 3 dots. One of them is a cast. The 2 other ones are instant casts. So the cast spell is Unstable Affliction, and then there's 2 instant dots that are Corruption and Agony. Basically, they all are pretty different. Unstable Affliction is, well, the cast spell that you have to actually channel, well, not channel, but like cast, had cast time. It deals a lot of damage and doesn't last very long. Corruption is our lowest damage dot, because it got nerfed in 5.2. It was decent before, but it got nerfed to the ground in 5.2. So this is just very low damage dot, instant dot. And it also procs shards, which is the affliction resource, if you like. And then there's Agony, which is another instant dot that you put on the target, and that stacks up to 10 stacks, yeah. And it deals more damage as it stacks up. So when you first put it on the target, it deals shit damage, very, very low damage. But as soon as it reaches 10 stacks, it's gonna take for a lot of damage every time, as long as the Agony stays on the target. All right?
Okay.
That's great.
So that's it for 3 dots.
Okay. And then and then you have some other spells that you're using all the time?
Yeah, okay. So then you have a resource called Soul Shards. You can have up to 4 of them. You start the fight with 4 Soul Shards. Basically, when you're out of combat, you always regenerate Soul Shards. In combat, you also regenerate Soul Shards every 20 seconds. So basically, you will use a Soul Shard to cast a spell on single target, to cast a spell that is called Haunt, that will buff the dots on the target.
Okay.
So basically, you put those 3 dots on the target. In Mist of Pandaria, you can now put 3 dots on the target with a single GCD, which is pretty nice. You will rarely cast Unstable Affliction, for example, and then the 2 other dots. Yeah, you will sometimes use a macro that will actually cast Soul Burn and Soul Swap, which applies the 3 dots on the target instantly, and that's pretty awesome. So once you have the 3 dots on your target, depending on how strong they are, you will want to use this resource called Soul Shards to buff them with Haunt. And that's about it. You buff your dots with Haunt, and then you just cast a filler spell called Malefic Grasp, which basically makes your dot tick. So on top of the dots already ticking, when you cast Malefic Grasp, which is a channel spell, it will make your dot tick again. So basically, the overall damage, when you look at scatter, recount, and whatnot, it's all dots. There's basically no other damage than dots, and the small damage that does Haunt and Malefic Grasp itself. And then, I can finish on single target. I can finish with Drain Soul, which is our execute filler spell. Basically, we use Malefic Grasp as a filler spell all the time until the target is like 20% hit points. And then from there on, you will never use Malefic Grasp again, but you will use Drain Soul instead. What Drain Soul does is every 2 times it ticks, it will give you a Soul Shard, which is the resource thingy for warlocks that allows you to recast haunts.
Yep.
Or instant dots and whatnot.
Gotcha.
So that's single target. Yep.
So in that, excuse me. So in that drain soul period, are you using your 2 shards to reapply your dots with the soul burn soul swap if necessary, and then just haunting, and then using your drain soul as filler between those 2 soul shards? Like, how are you managing your soul shards in the 20% phase?
Well, yeah, the 20% execute phase is pretty tricky. What you want is have the strongest dots possible on the target. That's already been said before. So you can actually have huge ticks with Drain Soul. Because Drain Soul is like Malefic Grasp. It makes your dots tick. So what you don't want to do is replace, for example, strong dots on the target with unbuffed dots by using your instant cast, put all 3 dots on the target macro. Because as we know, as Affliction, it all depends on how strong your dots are. So depending on your intellect, crit, haste procs, whatever you have in the last phase, you will manually recast, for example, Unstable Affliction or maybe Corruption, rarely Agony. And use your shards to just keep haunt on the target 24/7. That's the thing you need to do in the execute phase. Basically, you have like infinite soul shards. So because you keep casting Drain Soul, so your target always has haunt on it, and it's all gonna be about how strong your dots are again. So yeah, if you have like huge procs, I don't know, like you know about the Leishan trinket has 100 crit chance that gives you 100 crit. 100% crit. So if the trinket procs in the execute phase and my dots are way less strong as they would be if I would recast them with the trinket, then I'm gonna use a shard to just put all my dots again on the target and haunt and Drain Soul. So yeah.
Gotcha.
I have a question too. So speaking of so you're talking about like in the execute phase, rebuffing your dots, keeping haunt up at all times. Is a similar type of strategy used in your opener, but with Malefic Grasp instead?
Yeah,
like what is the basic opener that you're kind of doing? Is it kind of the same thing as your execute phase in a way?
Yeah, basically you apply the 3 dots instantly in the opener, and then you haunt to buff them, and then you have all your procs. Every time you start a fight, everyone has all the procs coming at the beginning of the fight. So when you have all the procs up, basically your dots, you have to reapply the dots. You have to just put all the dots again on the target, like recast them instantly or whatnot, because they will be buffed by all your procs. And then you will just haunt and Malefic Grasp. It's all about knowing when to recast your dots, like knowing if the dots on the target are strong enough that you don't want to recast them and let them run their course until the end almost, or if the proc that just procced is strong enough so that you want to recast, one of the 3 dots or all 3 dots or maybe 2 dots, it depends. You don't always redot the same dots depending on the buffs. So yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but it's all about managing having strong dots on the targets that have intellect buffs and whatnot.
Well, let me tell you, I was looking at some of your numbers in the video, and I was super impressed because, my God, those numbers were huge. I couldn't believe how big those were. So,
but what kind of encounter are we talking about, though?
What's that? Oh, on like the Leishan or Raden.
Pretty much every encounter,
right,
I think you were doing amazing DPS.
I was looking at a bunch of different videos, and I'm just so impressed with Warlocks in 25-man. It's just incredible right now. So that's awesome.
I have another. Excuse me, losing my voice. I have another question about your haunt. Are you only casting it during intellect procs apart from outside of your dark power? Oh my God, I'm dying. Hang on 1 second.
It's more of a puberty thing. He just hit it last week,
right,
so
right.
Got to be patient.
I'm sorry. So your haunts, are you only casting them with intellect procs outside of your dark soul and outside of capping at 4?
Well, basically, you will save your shards if the dots on the target are not very strong. If they are strong, you will use all your shards to buff them with Haunt. And then when all your procs are gone, and you have to, let's say your procs are gone and your strong dots are running out, okay? You have no procs, nothing. So you are going to reapply the dots, yeah? Because they are running out.
Sure.
If you reapply dots with no procs, they are going to be really bad. Those dots, you don't want to buff them with Haunt. So you're just going to pull soul shards and save them until you have, well, at least 3. And then if you have 4, then you're gonna have to Haunt because you can't stay with 4 soul shards. So because there's no point staying with max soul shards. Anyway, you will just use Haunt, but otherwise you don't want to unbuff dots with Haunt. So basically, you're just gonna put very bad dots on the target and use Haunt if you have max soul shards. If not, just save your shards and don't buff those dots. Just Malefic Grasp with nothing on those dots. And then when you have procs again, if the procs are good enough, I'm not talking about a small proc like Jade Spirit, for example. It's not going to be worth it. It has to be some kind of new trinket proc that you want to redot everything and then use Haunt to buff the dots. Okay?
So are trinkets going to be the big thing for Affliction Warlocks, at least right now, that you're looking at for making sure that... Okay.
It is huge. The more often the trinkets will proc, the more you will be able to keep all your dots buffed all the time, because dots have a very short duration. You can prolong it with a talent called Pandemic. Basically, you can have longer lasting dots, but in the end, they don't last very long anyway. So you always want to have buff dots on the target.
Right.
And it's way easier if you have trinkets proccing all the time. The new RPPM trinkets, they're supposed to proc a lot more than the previous trinkets that had internal cooldown.
Gotcha.
So
anything else as far as the rotation or priority that you can tell us before we move into like some other things like talents and stats and blah, blah, blah? Anything else that we can tell for people that are trying out Affliction for the first time in a while or whatever?
Well, right now I only talked about single target though.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, multi-target.
We got to do multi-target because I mean, with all those dots, man, you can do a lot.
Yeah,
you can do a lot of damage. So let's do a multi-target right now.
All right. There's a few different multi-target situations. There's spread out multi-targets, for example. On those, first of all, you want to know if they have enough hit points for all the dots to tick. Because if it's targets that die really fast, it's going to be different. Let's say you're on an encounter like Council of Elders. Okay, you have 4 big bosses, and they are not always tanked all together. So you want to keep dots running on all of them. Yeah?
Yep.
So for this, you're going to use your soul shards to apply all the dots on all 4 of them with your 4 soul shards. 1 soul shard equals 3 dots applied instantly to 1 target. So you will dot all the targets and then just keep the dots up, which basically is going to take most of your time. Right. You will barely have time to cast a filler spell, like Malefic Grasp.
Okay.
You might want to use Seeds of Corruption if at least 3 of them are tanked together. But I'm not even sure about that because, well, yeah, actually you could cast 1 or 2 seeds in between recasting dots. But yeah, basically all you want to do is keep casting dots and make sure that all the dots you're casting are buffed. Let's say now there's a lot of targets tanked together, and well, it doesn't matter if they have a lot of hit points or not. What you're gonna do is pick one, apply all 3 dots with a soul shard and the macro soul burn, soul swap, and then you wanna use another soul shard to cast an improved Seeds of Corruption. This spell basically cast a seeds on the target that will explode and hit all the targets in a certain radius.
Sure.
It's big enough usually, if everything is tanked together. So when you use a soul shard to cast Seeds of Corruption, it will apply the dot corruption on all other targets that currently don't have dots, because you only dotted one.
Awesome.
So you will have one target with 3 dots, and then corruption running on all other targets. Now, what you want to do once you have done that, that's 2 soul shards, okay? Mm-hmm. What you want to do is tab, cast Seed of Corruption on all the targets that have corruption, or even the main target, doesn't really matter. So you want to put a Seeds of Corruption on all targets, but not always the same one. So you're going to tab seeds, tab seeds, tab seeds. And basically the seeds, they explode when they take damage. So what's going to happen is going to make a chain reaction.
Sure.
They're always going to explode from the previous seed, or even the corruption ticks and whatnot.
Right.
So that's basically what you want to do. And also you want to make sure that the corruption is running on all the targets at all times. So the corruption has like 20 seconds or something, and then you're gonna recast improved Seeds of Corruption with a soul burn, so you can actually reapply corruption on all the targets, and then just resume casting Seeds of Corruption on every target by just tabbing, tab seed, tab seed, tab seed.
That's great. And
that's how you spam Seeds of Corruption.
Right.
And because the ticking corruption is what's going to trigger those seeds to explode.
Well, this and the seeds as well.
Right.
Because the seeds, as they explode, it's going to make a chain reaction from seeds exploding other seeds, exploding other seeds. Because the corruption ticking in itself is not enough. It's not big damage enough.
So it's just this big, huge chain reaction of explosions.
Of glory.
Right. If you don't want to bother with that, you can also just apply 3 dots on the target and then chain just spam Seed of Corruption on the main target that has all the dots.
Right.
The problem is, depending on how strong your dots are, the seeds might not always explode fast enough, right? Because it needs a certain amount of damage to explode. So,
Gotcha. That's cool.
That's huge damage. That's awesome.
Anything else on AOE situations?
There's an encounter that's pretty awesome for Affliction. It's probably the best, the most fun for Affliction. It's Primordius. Okay, it's this Diablo-like boss that has a lot of how do you call them, blobs, whatnot, running towards him. And this for Affliction is like heaven. So basically, what you're gonna do, you're gonna have you have 4 shots, yeah. So you're gonna dot 4 targets with 3 dots each.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once you've done that, you don't want to bother casting Malefic Grasp or whatnot. You're just going to Drain Soul the lowest hit point of those 4. So I didn't explain that before, but when you Drain Soul a target, usually an Add or even a boss, it also works. And when the target dies, if you're Drain Souling it, you regain 4 shards instantly, which makes this encounter so much fun for Affliction. Basically, you're going to dot 4 targets, Drain Soul 1, regain 4 dots, dot 4 more targets, Drain Soul, and then dot 4 more. In the meantime, you have Corruption sticking, and Corruption, they also proc Soul Shards. So basically, it's like Soul Shards heaven, and you can dot all the bloods if you're fast enough. It's a lot of micromanagement, and that's really, really awesome for me coming from RTS games.
Sure.
It's really, really nice. The faster you are at dotting targets, and it's the most fun it is. This encounter is definitely the best design encounter for Affliction this year. I love it.
So the more mobs, the better, as far as you're concerned for Affliction, right?
Well, they have to die fast as well, because if they don't die, you don't regain 4 shots by Drain Souling them to death.
That's amazing. Now, anything else on AOE? Okay.
Pretty much.
Okay.
I think I pretty much summed it up.
Well, let's move into some of the other things that we need to talk about with Affliction Locks. Let's talk about stats. What kind of stats are we looking at for Affliction Locks?
Well, it depends on your gear. We have been trying, as in Sparkex and I, the 2 main method warlocks at the moment, have been talking a lot about theory craft and not. And it's pretty complex, because either you can use Simulation Craft, which is the main tool for simulating your characters and knowing what kind of reforge or what kind of stats you want to go for.
Sure.
Basically, there's a few different choices. Mostly it will depend on your eye level, first of all.
Okay.
So if you're like, I'm going to sum it up. Let's say you are really low eye level. And by low eye level, I mean less than 500. What you want to do is probably aim for the first corruption haste cap, which is 4,717. That's a pretty safely easy cap to reach when you have no gear.
Okay.
And then just pump everything else into mastery. Okay.
Okay.
Of course, I'm gonna talk about talents at the same time. You're gonna use Grimoire of Supremacy.
And what does that
all the
do?
time as a fixture. But basically, it allows you to summon a stronger pet.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because warlocks are playing with pets in 5.2 now.
Right.
Basically, they nerfed Grimoire of Sacrifice so much that Grimoire of Supremacy is now the best until way later on when you're almost close to best in slot gear.
Okay.
So yeah, basically you want to use Supremacy, summon a super strong pet, send it, just pet attack, doesn't matter.
Sure.
And then just use the first Reforge I said if you have low gear. Then next, let's say you have like 520. That's probably the next step or the next tier. You have 520. It should be possible. It might be possible to reach a way higher haste cap. That is 9,778. This one is an extra tick of agony, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, this cap is pretty high, and if you wanna aim for this one, make sure that you at least have, let's say, 5,000 mastery remaining behind this. Because if you want to reach this cap and then you dump all your mastery and then you just end up with like 3k mastery,
sure,
that's not gonna be worth it. So you just want to stay with the previous haste cap. This cap is pretty entertaining. This is the cap I'm using right now.
Okay.
I also tried another thing, which is reforging everything into haste. Basically, when we're gonna be best in slot, supposedly we're supposed to go for full haste and Grimoire of Sacrifice on single target, that is. Mm-hmm. The problem is single target bosses, besides Jinrock, there are none, basically, almost.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to stay with this Reforge until the end, and even the same talents, even using a pet. Because basically, you don't want to use Grimoire of Sacrifice on multi-target situations. Grimoire of Sacrifice buffs your filler spell. And you will not, or rarely, cast a filler spell on multi-targets, because all you do is redot.
Right.
So on multi-targets, you're going to want to keep Grimoire of Supremacy and your pet, a buffed pet. And with this, doesn't really matter going full haste as well on multi-target, because the haste, it buffs your pet damage, okay? It gives you more ticks to your dots. But all in all, it won't beat Mastery, because Mastery actually buffs all the dots, the strength. They deal more damage.
So is it all haste and mastery and nothing else, or are you doing anything, any other secondary stats like crit?
Well, right now, no, crit doesn't. Well, crit is another subject. I can talk about this like just after this, because it concerns one specific thing. But right now I have like 532 eye level, which is pretty high, and I'm still going for the haste cap I mentioned, 9,778, and pumping everything else into mastery, which makes me have 9,778 haste and around 9k mastery. That's pretty decent. That's a balance. Basically, it's really nice if you can balance those two stats. At this point, I think it's really good. But yeah, that's about it. Okay. I think that's about it. Now talking about crit. Crit comes with one thing in particular. It's Shaye Trinket. It's Dark Animus caster Trinket.
Okay.
That basically is supposed to proc more if you crit more. So it's not supposed to be a Warlock trinket because, well, Warlocks always run with low crits.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, Affliction Warlocks always run with low crits. The other two specs, not always. But so the problem with this trinket is apparently you have to be around 29% crit. That's rate buffed.
Oh, gotcha.
If you want to make sure it procs enough to be better than the other trinkets. But as Affliction, it shouldn't matter that much because the two best installed trinkets are supposedly a combo of Wu Cholet and Breath, or Wu Cholet and Lei Shen trinket. Or do I need to explain what the trinkets are, maybe, or maybe we don't care?
Well, I mean, go ahead. Why not? Sure.
Because the trinkets are very like huge this tier.
Mm-hmm.
It's way more important than the previous tiers. Right. Basically, they made 4 caster trinkets, which is pretty much a first to me. I've never seen 4 caster trinkets before, and they also changed the system for those trinkets to proc. It's no longer an internal cooldown. They now proc with a system called RPPM, real proc per minute, and basically it makes them pretty random, but they supposedly proc a lot more, like let's say 2-3 times per minute at least.
Sure.
So anyway, those trinkets, they're huge because some of them will proc less than others. For example, right now we have Wu Cholet that has the highest uptime on all the trinkets, and then we have Breath of the Hydra that's actually a very good trinket for our daughters. And then we have Chaillet, but you need crit for this one, so it's pretty tricky. And then we have Lei Shen trinket, and that trinket is the most awesome trinket I have ever seen, especially for Warlock, because basically what it will do, it will proc a 100% crit increased crit chance for 4 seconds. That's a 4-second window you have to take a decision, to make a decision, and that's actually what makes this trinket so awesome. Because when it procs, it's like Christmas, you're like, you're like all roused and shit. But no, you can't always do whatever you want when it procs. So depending on how many shards you have and whatnot, you have to make the right decision. And this trinket is just pretty awesome. It's really nice to play with it.
Cool.
So yeah, that's about it for the trinkets. They play a huge role, especially in Affliction, because as I said, trinkets buff your dots.
What do you think about that design where you're relying on trinkets to drop before you can actually do like really awesome damage with an Affliction Warlock?
Wait, what? Say that again.
How do you feel about it almost seems like Blizzard has said you need these trinkets in order to play an Affliction Warlock, right? How do you feel about that?
Well, we can always play Affliction Warlock even if we don't have those trinkets. I mean, previous tier Affliction was really strong, but yeah, this tier the trinkets, not even only as Affliction, but with all specs and like all classes, probably the trinkets play a huge role. That's the thing that you need to see in 5.2. Those trinkets play a huge role. Yeah, but you can do decent with the previous tier trinkets. Just probably not as good.
Gotcha.
I had a quick question. Earlier, you were talking about Grimoire of Supremacy. Is there a particular pet that you like as Affliction for single target and multi-dot?
Yeah, I haven't talked about pets. Basically, the highest damage pet is Observer, which is the upgrade from Fell Hunter. Okay, so Fell Hunter becomes Observer in with Supremacy. It transforms into a mini Duomu.
Right.
And yeah, so this is the highest single target DPS pet you can have. The problem is it has to stop to cast spells. So if this is an encounter where the bosses are being moved around a lot, you might want to switch for Succubus.
Okay.
The Succubus is pretty nice if there's a lot of movement. Then there is another pet you want to use on one encounter. You're gonna have that's a tip I'm gonna give. So
awesome.
Pick up your pencil and open your TXT file. If you're doing Horidon in Heroic mode, if you haven't, there is one thing that changes from normal mode to Heroic mode. In heroic mode, at some point during the encounter, it's gonna happen. Trust me. You're gonna have a pink elephant. That's how I call it, but it's actually a pink rhino or something that just is linked to you. Only you can see it. It's linked to you. You cannot kill it because it has 1 billion hit points. I don't know how many hit points, but you can kill it, and it's linked to you. And what it does is just move towards you very slowly, but very annoyingly as well. And if it hits you, it rapes you. It's just eats you alive. It's like one shot or two shots at best. So what you're gonna do on this encounter as Affliction Warlock, or even probably other specs as well, is summon a Fell Imp pet and just target this pink elephant with your Fell Imp, and the Fell Imp is just gonna push it back. Oh yeah, I didn't explain how it works. Basically, it moves towards you very slowly. But what you can do to against that is knock it back. But there's a small cooldown window. You cannot knock it back indefinitely. It's like let's say every 3 seconds you can knock it back. Okay. So instead of just having to focus on it and micro and like cast a spell on it every 3 seconds, because it takes a lot of attention to do that, you're just gonna summon a Fell Imp and then just press. Make sure that your Fell Imp though is in defensive mode, or passive mode at least, and you're just gonna use pet attack on it, and that's it. Don't worry about it ever again. The Fell Imp is just gonna knock it back to North Korea or even further than that.
Wow.
Yeah, you won't even have to worry about it ever again.
Cool.
But trust me,
Awesome.
it's the most annoying thing I have ever seen in this tier. The pink elephant.
Right.
The pink
And
rhino.
You had mentioned too, Observer is best for single target. Is there a best pet for an AoE situation?
Well, you can pick the succubus and cast what's it called? Fell Lash.
Okay.
But the problem with Fell Lash is it knockbacks. So you might not want to do that on certain situations if you don't want your raid leader to just go or emo on you. What do you knock back?
Exactly.
So, actually, there's a funny thing. I was playing Affliction on our first Lation tries, and at some point, I was using this pet, and well, actually, we were two of us using Affliction and using this pet. And there's ads that you do not want to knock back on Lation called Ball Lightning, and just for whoring DPS, we just used the knockback, and one of us did. And no one knew who it was. And then everyone just went emo. Who did the knockback? It was probably the Warlocks. So anyway, Warlocks, what the fuck are you doing with your succubus? So anyway.
Well,
but no, you don't want to use that.
Can you admit that here, Blatty? Was it you? Can you admit that now? Were you the one?
Well, sometimes it was me, sometimes it was Falcon.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, hey, I know that you've got a raid here pretty soon, so let's knock out some of this other stuff here real quick. But let's talk about talents just quickly. Are there any other talents that you think that are particularly useful for Affliction Warlocks?
Well, I talked about Grimoires. That's level 75 tier talents. Yeah. Level 90 tier talents is pretty straightforward. You're always gonna pick Killjoy and Scanning, unless you wanna pick what's it called? The other one, Manual of Fury, to increase the AoE radius of your Seeds of Corruption. Okay. But that is very unlikely you will ever use that in 5.2. So yeah, you're just gonna go with Killjoy and Scanning on every encounter, basically, as Affliction. Gotcha. As Affliction. So don't even bother about level 90 tier. The other tiers, what's level 60 tier talents?
60
I don't even have
is
talents.
Blood Horror, Burning Rush, and Unbound Will.
Oh yeah. Well, Burning Rush, I'm a huge fan of Burning Rush. And this talent is pretty tricky as well, because if you don't really keep track of it, you will forget it. Trust me, you will. And if you forget it, just killing yourself like a fucking idiot.
I had Burning Rush on for like 90% of a Tortoise run one time. I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yep, you cannot Yeah, you don't even realize how many times I've seen that, like a warlock just killing himself for bounty rush. But yeah, this time it's just awesome. Just make sure that you track it properly so you don't forget it. And then there's a few bosses where you want to pick the other one that removes spells. What's it called?
Unbound Will?
This is my alt, sorry.
That's right.
Unbound Will. So, yeah, you want to pick Unbound Will on certain fights. Do you want me to give examples or?
Are you talking like Horadin or something like that, where you have different things going on, or?
No, you're gonna use Unbound Will to dispel yourself on certain encounters, like Jinrock heroic mode. It gives you a debuff that you can dispel yourself with Unbound Will. Make sure that you're not in the water, the water that gives a huge damage buff. Because kill all the raid when you use it. So that's one thing you can do on the first boss is use this talent. Definitely not use Burning Rush. There's barely any movement anyway. You're going to use this talent again on Council because if you get, on Council there's like sand traps.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get rooted if you are AFK in them. Well, if you get rooted, just use the talent and just escape. There's that. Then there's what bosses? It's pretty useful. Other bosses. Primordius. Primordius, you're gonna have to stack buffs by walking on dead pools of blood, or whatnot. And sometimes you stack too much, and instead of stacking to 5 buffs, you stack to 6, and then that's a huge debuff on you. If you stack too much, then you're just gonna have debuffs on you, and you can spell yourself by using the talent again, and then just restack.
Cool. Any particular glyphs that you're using like all the time as an Affliction Warlock that you, as soon as you pop over to Affliction, you go, okay, I need this glyph?
No, the glyphs are pretty useless for Warlock in Mist of Pandaria.
Okay.
Are you not using the Soul Sock one?
Nope.
Okay.
I tried it, and it didn't feel right. Like I had trouble using it because I don't know, it was weird. But you might want to try it if you like. I mean, it's a matter of preference, but I don't really think many Warlocks use it.
Okay.
Or maybe they do. But the glyphs are pretty straightforward. They don't give much.
And what
there's
about
one? There's basically one DPS increase glyph. Sorry, I'm just gonna talk about it real quick. It's a glyph of unstable affliction. Basically, that's the only DPS increase glyph. The other ones just pretty much.
And that's just a cast time reduction, so that makes sense. Getting back to.
And what about Dark Soul? Are you glyphing that one or no?
No, somehow I don't know. I talked about this because I was curious with Sparkers, and then no, apparently it's really bad. That's all I know. It's bad. Don't use it.
Don't do it.
Don't use it.
Don't do it. Kids.
Don't do it at home.
Right. Now, anything else as far as Affliction Warlocks go that you think people need to know that we haven't discussed? We've talked about a lot, so I don't know.
Yeah. Make sure that you're always jumping over the place while channeling your Malefic Grasp to annoy everyone in the raid. That's the most important thing possible you can do. Is just jump and just run around and whatever, backpedal, do everything that all the PvP boys hate about this game. Just run, jump, do everything while channeling Malefic Grasp.
It's the same thing that Resto Druids do. It's Resto Druids and Affliction Warlocks just run around like crazy.
Annoy everyone with this. Yep.
That's right.
Kill Jedi Cunning is definitely the best thing that has ever happened to Warlock.
Oh man.
Yep.
Well, I was wondering, Blatty, you were talking about all this micromanagement of the dots. Is there any type of add-on or anything that you recommend for Affliction?
Oh yeah, there's one add-on that everyone who actually strives to become the best Affliction player possible needs, and by needs I mean needs to get. It's called Aff-dots. AFF-dots. Right? In one word.
Okay.
Get it.
Make sure to have it.
Learn how to use it. Make sure you understand how to use it. And if you don't, you can always contact me. But this add-on changed my life, basically. It just does everything. The only thing it doesn't do is make coffee when I'm thirsty in raids. But honestly, it does just everything an Affliction Warlock is looking for.
All right, cool. Hey,
It shows you how strong are your dots on the targets, and then
that's awesome. That's really great.
Yeah.
Now, as far as where people can find you, where can they find you at? What's the easiest way to find you online?
Well, right now I stopped streaming on Twitch because, as you might know, I was streaming on Twitch for months, raiding with Method and whatnot in the previous tier, and then I was hired by a French esport company called Millennium, and now I am streaming on their platform, which is Dailymotion. So it's a bit trickier to find me. The easiest way is probably to follow me on my Facebook, which is Blatty, MMO, in one word.
Right on.
Right.
Cool.
Yep. So that's
awesome
for finding me.
That's good. That's good. People need to know how to find you and ask follow-up questions to this interview. So
yeah, and I'm gonna be streaming in like 10 minutes on my new platform. So I will just every time I stream, I just put up the link on my Facebook. That's how you know when I'm streaming. Oh, there's one thing you might want to know. I think you might want to know that this is a French esport company that hired me.
Sure.
Therefore, I am streaming in full French mode.
In full French mode.
So
one minor detail.
Yeah, you better pick up some kind of French translator dictionary before you tune in on my stream.
Right.
Or you can just turn the volume down and just listen to whatever.
It's nothing but
you want.
J'aime le fromage, like 24/7.
Yeah. That's about it. That's about. I like baguettes. J'aime le pain. Et le fromage.
Right. Well, we cannot thank you enough for coming on to talk to us about Affliction Warlocks and everything about heroic progression rating. And congratulations again for the number one, for being ranked number one in the world. I mean, that's amazing. But
well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks. And we'll give you another round of applause right there.
Yeah. Hopefully, if you ever invite me again, I will a mage again.
Well, there you go. There you go.
No, stay Warlock. I like it much better as a Warlock. No.
And Blatty, we will never invite you here again. Never. No. Of course we will. We will. We'll make sure to do that. Hopefully, maybe even next tier. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? Why not?
So, but go raid, have fun, and we will try to talk to you soon.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Blatty.
Thanks, Blatty.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, man.
All right. That was amazing.
I didn't get to ask him a question. You sent him off too quickly.
I'm sorry. I know he's got a raid in like 10 minutes.
But you were just like, and this, and this, and this. I'm like, well, I'm not going to interrupt you, but I wanted to ask him something.
Well, we'll have to have him back so you can ask your...
Right.
What was your question?
What was your question?
I wanted to know, because I had a really good spot to even fit this in, but he was in a sentence, so I didn't want to interrupt him. But
sure.
So the new RPPM trinkets, based off of your haste, I don't have either of those yet on my Warlock, and I'm Destruction. I wanted to know if I made the transition to Affliction without those trinkets, if I would still be able to put out competitive, equal, or maybe even a little bit better numbers as Affliction.
Well,
but now I'm not gonna.
Well,
know.
he did say you can still play Affliction and be competitive without him. However,
that's right.
I'm guessing that you might take a hit a little bit, but if you
I'll probably just wait till I get those trinkets.
You do have two specs to play with, so I'm guessing that you could probably check it out yourself.
And I would say just for this simple thing of you want to buff up those dots, and those trinkets proc so often, and the trinket procs are so amazing, I would wait till you get those trinkets, and then you can buff up your dots like crazy.
That's what I figured. I just wanted to hear it from the best Warlock in the world.
I know. Isn't that amazing? He's like the best.
That is...
It's unbelievable.
That was awesome. And we've had so many amazing guests on this show, and thank you, Blatty. Sorry. I didn't say it very French-like.
No.
Thank you, Blatty, from Method.
It's just incredible, man.
It's amazing.
So knowledgeable, great guy. It's just like all of our guests. I mean, these are world-class players. It's just incredible.
They are, and it is amazing. It is amazing to talk to these guys about how they play and just about how they think about things. And and what tools they're using and how they're using them. So it's amazing.
It's awesome.
Amazing stuff. All right.